Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Karma Summit India Edition 2020. And my name is Vijay Krishna. I'm the Global Director for Engagement and Solutions at Gridera. And I personally want to thank each one of you joining us around this important discussion around transformation of volunteerism from the physical to the virtual. Uh, COVID-19 has changed our world in unimaginable ways, and I would say we have crossed the point of digesting the news. I mean, we have crossed the point of uh, the shock to digesting the news right now, and we're slowly adapting ourselves to the new normal. Like work from home has become a new reality, and it's no more a big question, at least for most of us. Um, Managing work along with family, the kids at home, the studies for kids at home, balancing work life. So everything has gone for a new toss, and I think and most of us have done a splendid job in balancing everything together. And in this scenario, we thought one of the most important topic that of importance is employee volunteerism. Ever since, even way before CSR became a law in India, employee volunteerism has been an act of, let's say, the finite thread which holds the haves and have-nots in a very tight relationship. That is, employees or let's say individuals taking out their precious time in contributing or upskilling or providing the necessary impact in the social space. While this is all great, and CSR actually powered this in a very different way and took it to different levels altogether. And the COVID pandemic has suddenly put a big halt during the period of March when it came to volunteering because of social distancing. A lot of questions raised. I mean, do we need to prioritize this? How do we do it? How do we start about it? How do we think about it? And what was the impact? And not just on the social side. I mean, of course, there was a sudden disconnect between the non-profit, which were requiring not just monetary help, but also the skill-based requirement or a help or a touch, was suddenly stopped. So this scenario is impacting the social side at one side. On the other side, employees always felt motivated when they came together as a group and doing social good, be it as simple as beach cleanup or school transformations, or interacting with mentorship programs or teaching programs, education programs, where they were putting the skills into pro bono. So volunteering always played an important role. Uh, and personally, working across a lot of global clients, we have seen this journey has been amazing. I mean, what we thought wouldn't happen suddenly shaped up to be virtual, and a lot of companies and non-profits came together and said, okay, we have to do this at some point or the other, and let's do it right now. And we have seen immense amounts of shit that happening across the industry, and now a lot of companies have gone virtual in the virtual volunteering mode. With this in place, we have got an esteemed panel here today, and I think each of them comes with a very specific, unique profile behind them. For example, in no particular order, I would like to invite. We have Mr. Deepak Prabhu, who is the Global Head of Cognizant's Employee Volunteering Program Outreach, and he spearheads the employee volunteerism for more than 250,000 plus employees across the globe for Cognizant. Deepak also serves as a core committee member for the Cognizant Foundation, Karnataka. And pleasure to have you with us today, Deepak. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Shubhangi, and the entire Goodera team for inviting me.
Thank you. With in the second, we have got Mr. Vikram Gulati. Mr. Gulati is the country head and the senior vice president, external affairs PR CSR for Toyota Kirloskar Motor. Interestingly, he also served as a civil servant, from the IRPS batch of '92. He has a rich and varied experience of over 2 decades working in the government in various capacities in the areas of transformation sector, transportation sector, and automotive industry. Pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Gulati.
Thank you for having me over. Thank you, Uday.
Thank you so much. And finally, from the social sector side, we are pleased to have Ms. Pushpa Aman Singh, who's the founder and CEO of GuideStar. Very interesting when GuideStar India chapter paved way for non-profit due diligence in India, and I mean having closely vetted close to 10,000 non-profits across multiple cities and cost areas. Pushpa brings a very rare insight into the complex and diverse non-profit sector that we have in our country. Pushpa is also a member of Advisory Council of GuideStar US and a global leader for Giving Tuesday initiative. Pleasure to have you with us, Pushpa, today.
Thank you very much. And I really look forward to this interaction and the opportunity to connect with so many of the participants, especially given that virtual volunteering is going to play a very critical role. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So thanks, everyone. So the way that we want to structure this conversation is into 3 parts. One, what we call the mode of inception, how the seed of virtual volunteering, the transformation seed of virtual volunteering took place in each of the industries and also on the social side. The second aspect of it, what we want to cover is a lot of companies have done this, let's say Cognizant, Toyota Kirloskar Motors, and etc. What we want to understand from them is how the impact for an employee individually, how it empowers an employee individually, and the impact it has caused in the social side as well. And the last bit of it is we want to quickly cover the future of virtual volunteering and what our panelists thinks about the virtual volunteering future today. So those are the three things that we want to cover. Without any delays, let's quickly jump in. Mr. Prabhu, my first question is to you. With a diverse portfolio, I mean, it's not an easy task. I mean, I've seen planning and executing volunteering activities for a small office takes a huge amount of focus, planning, alignment, and etc. With a global workforce, how did you envision and start off saying, okay, this is what we need to do, and we need to go virtual? How did the overall thought process came for you, and how your team ramped up to your speed, and how did you all achieve it together?
Thank you for the question. Because it rekindles a lot of memories from March and April, right? Suddenly, to those innumerable trips that the volunteers used to go to various schools, orphanages, plantation activities, and many other mentoring programs in colleges and so on. We had to really pause and figure out how do we sort of continue in a virtual mode. Of course, it took us about 3 to 4 weeks to recover from that shock of not being able to continue in the same mode which we have been doing year on year. But then the realization set in that, okay, on the one hand, we need to continue the connect with beneficiaries. Second is we should, there's no other option but to connect digitally. And then if we connect if we establish that connection digitally with the beneficiaries, how do we run the program? We may not be able to run in an existing or in the previous mode. So that's where there were three challenges in this, right? One is to really, how do we connect to the beneficiary? Okay, not having those face-to-face interactions with the beneficiaries means that the positive emotions, the empathy, and the sense of gratitude that volunteers derived from such interactions were suddenly missing. Those fun moments, the travel to the school or the lake suddenly disappeared. On the other hand, okay, great, you establish some connect with the beneficiaries, but can you connect digitally? And the digital divide that we experienced was alarming. The traditional beneficiaries, such as the students whom we used to volunteer when we go to the school or the college, were not accessible, because the college or the school used to be a place where the students used to meet with the volunteers. Volunteers used to meet with the students. But then suddenly the school is closed, the college is closed, and we don't have data about their whereabouts. We were not able to connect with the teachers. And then from a program point of view also, we were volunteering, like I said, in schools, colleges, shelter homes, environment conservation activities, to pause all of that and, configure new ways of reaching out was a challenge we encountered. I think in some situations, we also experienced some challenges where NGOs were not sure whether we can continue our volunteering program in a virtual mode. As well as some of the employees felt that, hey, is it really impactful if we do the programs virtually rather than physical?
And how did you, what was the first activity that Cognizant undertook? I think Hotline was one, but I would love to hear from your side. How did you first start off? What kind of activities were the ones?
Yeah, so we really felt that we need to play a role in some of the COVID relief activities. And then when we scanned the horizon, we came across a lot of NGOs and also government organizations who were trying to provide that immediate relief, right? Most importantly, the first priority was, or the first challenge was addressing the food insecurity. So we saw several NGOs like No Food Waste, particularly in, I think, Chennai, Coimbatore, even in Bangalore. There were some organizations in Kochi who set up these helplines. And then we felt that I think we can bring in a professional touch to some of these emergency food helplines. So volunteers started, hey, can we create a Google form to actually receive a request? So when somebody who is not had food for many days calls the helpline, It is also to make sure that there is a workflow that enables the food to be delivered to that person, to that family, and things like that. So there was Google Forms used to capture requests that were received through the IVRS. There was a Google Sheet, which was accessed by the partner kitchens as part of the workflow who used to prepare and dispatch. But then the volunteer was also monitoring, hey, whether it is moving through the workflow, whether a request received is actually getting dispatched, and daily reports used to be prepared. That's where the professional approach, undertaken by the volunteers sort of helped a lot. I'll share more examples as we go along.
Got it. It's a pretty interesting journey. I think talking about food and ration, I just want to shift the focus to Mr. Gulati here. PKM did a lot of activities, especially in the Bidadi area, I think during the COVID relief, especially the ration kits that you provided or the PPE masks that you provided. Toyota had like a multiple battles, for example, while a tech company can say, let's work from home, and obviously you have to concern about the information security and things like that. For a manufacturing company, it's highly impossible to even think about that, right? You need to bring people into the shop floor. You need to continue production in some, in a very, safety and way. Well, all the challenges are there. I mean, how did you and your team, prioritize, let's say, volunteering as number one, so that your employees can be engaged? And what is the whole thought process behind it? It'll be pretty interesting for all the manufacturing participants to hear.
Sure. Just before I go into that, I'll just kind of give you a brief context in terms of what we are and what we believe in. At Toyota, we see CSR more as of a responsibility that we carry to society as a voluntary activity, not entirely as a legal requirement. So even when we started doing our CSR activities, even as we started our operations way back in 1998, 97, 98, thereabouts. We've come a long way, and we've kind of adopted employee volunteerism from 1997. And the reason basically was that we wanted to strive towards bringing changes across the entire society through involving our employees. And we initiated the program called iCare, which stands for I Community Action to Reach Everyone. The philosophy really was to create a social movement driven by passion that focuses on empowering the employees and communities. Now, this iCare program for us has been, something of a great success, and we've done quite a bit there since our journey began in 2017. We've had more than 19 iCare activities. We have more than 900 volunteers, around 50,000 lives touched, and 5,000 hours of volunteering clocked so far. Now, when COVID hit us, you're right, manufacturing is a entirely different ballgame. And in the manufacturing setup, although you may have all the tools that enable you to work offline, work from home kind of environment, the culture doesn't really exist as much as it would have in other organizations. So while the tools were there, of course, this was something that we started to prepare ourselves as we could see the COVID, kind of over the horizon in January, February. So in getting employees enabled by having the necessary technological tools, understanding the tools, that was done. And of course, this kind of addressed the issue partly because once COVID hit us, the top priority that was there for us was to try and ensure the safety and well-being of our employees. A large portion of our employees are, of course, in the worker community, and therefore reaching out to them and kind of promoting safe behavior, the protocols that are required, was something very critical to us. Of course, there we were doing it through our HR sector, but then we realized that iCare was a very powerful platform where we could use our volunteers to bring out that message. So in the initial period, what we saw was iCare volunteers playing a critical role in terms of creating awareness, reaching out to their colleagues, to their family members, to their community members, in terms of the do's and don'ts. I think that was really good. A lot of digital content got created, a lot of sharing happened, and the iCare volunteers also kind of stepped up in terms of donating and contributing to social causes. Now, the desire to keep the employees volunteering and going ahead and keeping our CSR activities going was the prime driver for us to look at shifting to the virtual world. We didn't want to lose the steam that we had gathered over the past 3-4 years in this program, and hence we were very keen that we carry on this in a new normal where things had shifted to the digital world. So with COVID, of course, for large number of employees work from home, especially the desktop type employees, work from home became kind of a norm. Use of technology quickly became, the easy thing to do, not a challenge anymore. And this technology familiarity also enabled virtual medium to be used. So that's the story behind how we shifted from the traditional employee volunteerism program that we had to the virtual domain. And since then, we've had 4 programs that we ran since the COVID struck us.
No, that's a very interesting way that you prioritized. I mean, I'm sure a lot of companies have done that as well, but you prioritize like what's similar to Deepak's experience of activating hotlines and helplines across different places, and you activated your iCare to make sure that the first is I'm safe, second is like my community is safe, my family is safe, my community is safe, do's and don'ts and etc. But pretty interesting to hear that of all the things that was happening, employee volunteerism was a tool that you prioritized to kind of champion the safety and precautions as well as the motivation behind the employees part. Thank you, Mr. Gulati, for that. I'm going to slightly shift to the nonprofit side. Pushpa, you come from a rich experience in standardizing, setting very high standards for the nonprofits, and that means that you work very closely with them in terms of the process that they need to follow, the impact that they create in the society, and a lot of things around that, right? And what do you thought or the major challenges that the nonprofit face? While as an organization is more structured, what I see is a company like Cognizant or Toyota is more structured, process-oriented, process-driven. Whereas a nonprofit, especially COVID-19 means funding stops. COVID-19 means people stop visiting us. COVID-19 is a lot of other things at which they weren't even prepared to, and there was no a business continuity plan, is what I would call it as, for the nonprofit side. Nobody thought about it. And what do you think was the major challenges and the nonprofits faced, and how for respect, especially to receive the demand from virtual volunteering?
I'm glad that you've made me or the nonprofit voice as a part of this conversation. And while you did talk about not having a business continuity plan, I would say it was also perhaps a blessing in disguise for many of them, because that simply made them so agile. In fact, what struck me, because I'm one step removed from grassroots work, being an organization, that's an information repository, or that connects the giving side and the nonprofit side. People, in fact, kind of set aside their core work and started responding to the needs of the communities they served. So, if an organization was into non-formal teaching of children, they kind of didn't immediately think about how they would pivot that program, but how they would respond to the need of the children and the families to which they belonged, what were their immediate needs. So in a sense, organizations of course need processes and need to have a balance between responding to immediate needs versus their long-term strategy. But I think several nonprofits did manage that pretty well. In fact, for the first time, I would say Niti Aayog and other government, including the Prime Minister, kind of time and again called out about the role of nonprofits. Coming more specifically to how they responded to demands of virtual volunteering from the corporate side, I would say that broadly there were 4 areas where there was a challenge. For example, while corporates immediately wanted to, and like Mr. Gulati and Deepak kind of talked about, pivoting some of their volunteering programs into being more virtual, one big disconnect was the level of technology infrastructure that these organizations had at the community level to be able to kind of implement some of these programs. By that, what I mean is, there were employees available for mentorship or kind of taking teaching programs online. But at the community level, issues of not having electricity, not having top-up plans to charge telephones, or not having, smartphones, and how do you kind of do programs on feature phones, or one telephone or one mobile phone being used by the entire family. So how does the family schedule, the availability of the child? Or even if a matchmaking was done and a program was scheduled, the phone is not answered by the child by a parent who is worried or who wants to be part of the program. These kinds of, realities one had to grapple with. And I think over time, like the first few months were responding to relief measures, but then once these kinds of taking the on the ground physical program to the virtual setup, once the initial hiccups were overcome, then there were these nicer or finer issues that one had to kind of iron out. The other is, ground realities are not the same everywhere, and therefore there were programs where corporate employees were wanting to go on the ground and help NGOs with, meeting, say, the food requirements that even the other speakers touched upon. There were disconnects between, the corporate offering cooked food because they could kind of deploy their catering facilities, vis-a-vis what the community needed was, they would be happier with groceries. These kinds of disconnects were, of course, there. And one had to kind of make sure that how that need is incorporated and the matching happens. There were also issues like, organizations said our employees can make paper bags and they can create sanitation kits. But, on the ground, there were issues like water is not available, or, how does the community learn to use some of these things when they were struggling with more basic issues. So, whether, and there were organizations that wanted to kind of sensitize the community with good sanitation practices, but the ground realities were quite different. So those kinds of aspects had to be looked in. The third was, localizing versus scale. So typically when a corporate wanted virtual volunteering opportunities, it would make sense only if it could be rolled out at scale, pan India, or even in large numbers, vis-a-vis. So for the NGO, in a reality where a bunch of kids could attend a session in a classroom, vis-a-vis individually, 30-40 kids had to be managed. There was a lot more in between layers of people that were required to kind of even managing this setup of virtual volunteering. The fourth important issue that I found was a challenge was issues related to privacy, issues related to even say matters like child protection policies and stuff. So some organizations hadn't spelled it out. So this conversation hadn't happened between the company and the nonprofit. So these were new realities that NGOs also had to worry about. Safety for volunteer and safety for the child, and pairing up people maybe based on gender, based on language, because here a coordinator may not always be present. So these were some of the kind of realities that people had to grapple with. But I think nonprofits overall have done a great job in transitioning. But what was one big thing that kind of became much clearer to people is what you alluded to when you were just asking me the question, was that there is this very important layer of organizations that can smoothen this process of what corporate needs and what the NGOs needs are. I think more than ever before, the reality of having organizations like yourselves, Goodera, or other organizations who could kind of smoothen the process, or else this layer would be required either at the nonprofit side or at the corporate side of how to kind of enable the virtual volunteering to happen. I'll touch upon this more as we go along, but I thought I'll just kind of put these issues out. Yeah.
No, thank you, Vishwa. I think it's a brilliant way to put it in. What I see in the first part of it is like, one side, the corporate didn't want to stop from doing good. I mean, they wanted to find ways, and obviously, yes, and it's a learning curve. Like Deepak mentioned that, the first, or let's say Mr. Gulati mentioned that the first and foremost is like, what do we have at our disposal, and can we immediately go in for relief, right? And obviously, no, none of us were planned and prepared for it. But at the same time, I have personally witnessed this journey since March, when we actually supported, bridging the gap between, let's say, the immediate COVID relief to rehab, is what we will call it as, in the later part of rehab, when then organization matured out a lot of stuff. And very, very interesting points around what we call as, we have something called as opportunity level weighting as a criteria, which never used to exist earlier. That is, like exactly you said, copyrights, creation of content. Can somebody create the content? Can somebody use their official laptop to do something which was not designed to do something? Or these are like very tricky areas which none of us ever anticipated to get into. Like Deepak mentioned, a school is a place where you go and spend as a team, creating a larger impact. Or a lake is a place where you go and create an impact. Now it became your own personal computer and your own, thing to do it. But very interesting point. I think what a key takeaways that, at least I take away from it, is like, yes, the corporates responded immediately. I mean, with whatever they could at disposal, be it TKM, Cognizant, or the hundreds of other corporates which you have seen. As well as this side, the non-profits became agile. Though it was not a perfect coupling match in the initial bit, I think things have a lot smoothened out. With that, one of the key areas that I want to quickly touch upon with, with both Deepak and Mr. Gulati is, to start with Mr. Gulati, is the impact of technology. I think one of the key areas is there is a disconnect, there is distance, and how was technology, aided in the overall transformation?
Yeah, I think in the past few months, we've seen that technology was a huge enabler. Uh, to me, the biggest takeaway points using technology was it broke barriers of time and space. What I mean to say is, in Toyota TKM, we have our main office in Bangalore, but we also have our regional offices in Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata. There have always been a lot of requests from our colleagues who are in places other than Bangalore to be part of the volunteering program. We've always struggled in terms of how to make that happen. This was one of the goals that we set for ourselves for this fiscal, saying that, okay, perhaps we'll start regional activity. And, COVID happened. And suddenly with technology, we found that everybody, irrespective of where they were, could join in. And we saw much better participation, very good participation from these locations. The second thing I basically feel is it gives you greater comfort of trying to do an activity which you really want to do and not having to leave your home. This becomes very relevant in terms of the current times we are in, where maintaining a social distance, being at home, and yet wanting to do what you really are passionate about is critical. We also saw that participation was good using technology, and sometimes our events have had really the kinds of participation we haven't really seen even in the physical events. And I think this is the use of technology and being able to do it remotely, I think, is a big contributor to that. What I also saw was one of the goals that we usually like to have in a volunteering program is also to get people to connect with each other, not just contribute to society. That's the ultimate game. That's the primary objective, but also in terms of building bonds amongst employees. And what we saw was there was, thanks to our partners who enabled this, there was good quality interaction happening, even though this was a remote program. The second, I think, key aspect is what we saw was that shifting volunteerism from the physical to the virtual world also saw much better family activity. So we had most of the events that we've had have seen a good amount of family members joining in. So it's become kind of the end objective of reaching out to society and building the values of contributing back to society and doing volunteerism is now beginning to find its way across the entire family, even the younger members, children, which I think is really good. And it supports our CSR approach of child to community. We would like to do CSR aimed at the child. because child, is the most impressionable member of society and can make a big difference going forward. With children getting involved in this volunteerism program, I think that also will be a big plus in terms of uh, developing this concept in their minds early on, and as they see their father or parents, get doing this. Uh, of course, we see that going forward, technology offers us an opportunity of creating much wider, cohesive groups who have common interest areas. So we can probably, in times to come, uh, be able to fan out and try and do volunteerism around many area domains without being constrained. So that is something, of course, opportunity which would like to explore. And the to my mind, this use of technology and shifting to the digital domain is also a possible enabler for our ultimate objective of developing greater employee ownership of the entire volunteering program that we are undertaking in our company. That's the ultimate goal we have, to have employees take ownership, take the lead for these volunteering programs, and we be in the background to be an enabler and a catalyst. And I see the shift to a digital domain actually helping to enable that happen.
I think very interesting. You touched upon two very important aspects. One is, I would say, this pattern is something which I have observed as well. A lot of first-time volunteers, especially remote, let's say from a financial sector, or let's say a sales side of it, business side of it, who are usually remote, or let's say in a very heavily crowded city, who has to take out time on a Saturday or a Sunday to step out and come out and do volunteering. And I have seen the trend. I'm going to ask Deepak around that whether he has seen a similar trend around that as well. Second is, like similar to what the OTTs have done, right? Bringing entertainment or new releases to home. What I have really seen is volunteerism has stepped inside each and every one of home. The involvement of family, the children especially, where they have seen that, my dad sits in front of the laptop always, but my dad is actually doing good. I mean, in a way that you are imbibing the culture, you're also spreading the organization values that, as a company, we also do this. It was a very, I've personally heard this from a lot of people. With this, I just want to touch base on the same things with Deepak, how he has seen technology, or let's say the virtual volunteering aspect of it. Is it improvised participation, first time volunteers? How is the impact with the families and has been? Deepak, over to you, please.
Yeah, I think it was a sort of a mixed bag approach, because on the one hand, you had to really play to your strength as an organization, while you need to ensure that you retain the passion of volunteers as individuals. So, Cognizant is an IT consulting and services firm. So we brought our professional skills to the fore by helping NGOs become more effective, where we helped design and develop some food donation apps. There was an open source platform that was created by a group of volunteers based in UK, where it was able to connect donors, beneficiaries, and volunteers. And that platform is an open source platform that has been implemented for about 10 NGOs globally, right? And we took a targeted approach. For example, in Mumbai, as part of our life sciences business unit, we have several registered doctors and nurses who work for our global life sciences customers. So they started helping volunteer for the COVID helpline. So along with the Indian Medical Association, particularly in Mumbai to begin with, we were trained by some of the senior doctors from the Indian Medical Association to be able to field calls from various public individuals. Hey, I have this throat irritation. Should I go for a COVID test? Right? There's somebody I know is COVID positive 2 streets away. Should I go for a COVID test? Or I don't feel I'm fine, but I don't know what it is. Where is the nearest doctor? So these were the kind of questions. They didn't give medical advice as such, but we were trained. They were trained to provide this kind of quick support and guidance, so that they can then seek appropriate help, or take a decision to quarantine. So that way, both from an IT skill perspective as well as from a professional skill, where these doctors and nurses are working for our life sciences customers, this is where we kind of connected the business purpose of their existence in Cognizant to a societal cause at that point in time. Continuing on, as the individuals, like I mentioned, there are a passionate group of volunteers, not connected with truly IT per se, but then because it is virtual, several employees were keen to share their soft skills, because earlier they had to travel a lot, and so should I travel for 2 hours to deliver a session for 1 hour, right? So that kind of went away from the window. So as the lockdown started easing, and as this digital divide started getting slowly bridged, so one of the things that a lot of the volunteers did was helping people get online. Okay, what it means to sign on to Google, mute, unmute, video on, and all those, some of those basic. And it differs from a Google Meet to a Zoom to a Teams to a WebEx, right? Even I get confused. Where is that mute, unmute button when I switch across medium? So these were some of the things where we made senior citizens, children in orphanages, persons with disability to be comfortable with the online medium, and then started the English coaching, communication skills workshop, interview skills workshop, because there was also a situation where a lot of people were saying, hey, I lost my job. So I don't think I'll get another job unless I improve my skill. Okay, what is the skill that you need? Okay, I have never attended an interview in the past. My first interview was 6 years ago or 10 years ago, and that was not really a formal interview. How can I get myself ready for a formal interview? Okay, we conducted interview clinics. And then somebody said, okay, I think I won't get a job unless I am proficient in English communication. So there was English communication session done. So that way, both from a core IT skill perspective, as well as from a utilizing and retaining the passion of employees, is where we brought IT to our advantage.
Interesting, Deepak. Thank you so much, Deepak. One of the major makeshift that I've seen personally in the volunteering space is the movement towards a lot of skill-based volunteering programs getting activated. When traditionally, like you said, it was always a group-based activity. I'm like beach cleanups or school cleanups or interacting with the school. When people are comfortable in doing it, taking that 2 hours time, and now I've seen the shift similar to what we witnessed in, let's say, in let's say North America, Europe. People are trying to do a pro bono based approach of inputting their skills better. Like you said, it could be the apps as simple as creating a website for a non-profit so that they can continue to receive funds, setting up a payment gateway, or putting a blog up there, writing a basic content for them to receive, to showcase their actions and activities or impact that they're creating. So these are all the huge gaps that was disconnected right now, and I've seen that happen a lot. I'm very glad to know that not just on a surface level, let's say, Cognizant have done it very deeper as well. With that, I want to shift to Pushpa. Like I said, it's a very interesting shift I've seen to skill-based volunteering coming in, and where employees are more willing to. It's no more like I'm just doing something which I'm not part of. I'm a HR, I'm a finance expert, I'm a designer, and now I want to take my skills and remotely support a nonprofit upskill and build. How do you think this is impacting the nonprofit universe, and how do you think this will go from here?
Like Mr. Gulati said, virtual volunteering has broken the time and space barriers, and therefore much more can now happen. And I think one of the best impacts has been on the pro bono skill-based volunteering, both on the NGO side and the corporate side. What we've seen is that in the virtual setup, teams are able to assemble and work together. So in a conventional, in the traditional past, what would have happened is if there was a volunteer available to create a website, maybe they would interact with one person in the NGO, because even NGOs have distributed work setups, right? There's someone sitting in a different city or in a program area, and you're going to the office setup, so you don't necessarily get to cover the two, or you have to take out time specifically or more time to kind of talk to 5 people. But we saw, in fact, we had put out a call for 1,000 NGO websites with Bhumi, which is one of our NGO partners that helps with volunteering. And what was interesting to see is that while there were individuals signing up for that assignment, there was also employee groups, from various companies that were coming together. In fact, a couple of corporates also kind of ran their own program for smaller number of NGO websites to be made. And typically these were team efforts. So, there would be one person who would be a coordinator in that group, one would be a content person, so the coordinator would be a generalist, the communications person would be, for that, there would be a tech, couple of web developers would get involved, then there would be the content writing person. So there were teams of 3 or 4 that came together to help one NGO. And from the NGO side, depending on their size, there would be 1 or 3, 4 people. And over a period of just 1 week, they kind of either created completely new websites or revamped existing websites, including all the works, putting their GuideStar certification, their payment gateway buttons, all of that could be created. And as we speak, some of those are still in progress. But something like this, NGOs coming together with their ask, the corporate side putting their teams together, orientations happened online, WhatsApp groups were set up, and it just seemed that there was so much harmonization that could be done in a virtual world much better than the amount of time and effort that would have been required otherwise. So this was an example that we saw really took off. What we also saw is that, or we are still seeing, is that in the virtual world, like Deepak said about helping people even learn to work through Google Meets or Zoom or WebEx, we see that now there is better documentation, recording. The co-creation happens much more in a streamlined fashion. More and more people are creating documents online where there is, people are coming together to edit, to create, which was all very much doable until COVID came, but was not happening because everyone hadn't kind of felt that as a necessity. It was more like a luxury to work on a shared drive or to edit documents or, work together. So we see a lot more of that happening, and therefore work is getting done in a much more effective and efficient way. The other is, while we kind of think that in a virtual world, the bonding would not happen. But just as, again, Mr. Gulati and Deepak said, because these Zoom meetings are happening in homes, you get to see where the nonprofit person, in what setup are they working, or there is the family coming together, or if it's in, an old age home, you're actually seeing while you're working, people are working with their pets or they're working with their children, families are getting involved. So I in fact have seen examples of greater bonding happening, conversations going beyond just work, but also kind of asking about each other. There's far more now empathy related to, people's well-being. Conversations always start with, hope you're doing well, hope you're safe, and, and getting to know the ground realities in a much better fashion. So I think it has broken the ice much more than, if you had gone, and there's a much more relaxed way of coming together. So even the volunteer is in a more relaxed setting, and, say even in casuals or less suited booted people, but more with there's much more person to person conversation happening now. So I'm seeing that in terms of the capacity building or pro bono volunteering, there's much more that is now doable. So organizations that were traditionally not looking at volunteers and pro bono volunteering as a possibility on the NGO side can now actually see that as a reality. And I think because teams from all sides can assemble, projects can actually happen and get completed, implemented, learning can go on much better. So I think this is here to stay again. And capacity building is a much more doable way of supporting organizations.
That's very brilliant. Thank you, Pushpa. Thank you so much. I think it kind of touched upon what Mr. Gulati said in terms of not just me and the society. It's between the teams coming together or different companies coming together and supporting a long-term sustaining, impactful initiatives has been supported. We have seen that at Goodera as well. A lot of these kind of projects getting picked up and a lot of getting filled up. Thank you so much, Petra, for that. So I think we broadly we see while Pushpa comes from the social side, and Deepak and Mr. Gulati comes from from the corporate side. We see the common pattern that what one picked up and has actually resonated very well on the other side as well. What I want to quickly check from my side to, for example, Deepak, is what do you think about the future of virtual volunteering? We did start off with relief, and we went to the experience, involvement of technology and things like that. What do you think the future of virtual volunteering is going to be?
See, before I answer that question, just sort of tying it back to the previous point about the technology usage, right? And to also reflect on a point Pushpa made. There are naturally, for corporates like Cognizant, several other technology companies and several other product companies who are our partners, right? But then in the traditional world, each of us may be doing their own programs and projects, naturally impacting various causes and communities and so on. But this was an opportunity here where we felt that, hey, we need to we have a great opportunity to take this partnership beyond business. Okay, we do business for a lot of our business opportunities, but here is a great opportunity which we have not really thought about in the past, or maybe it was not a necessity kind of a thing from a partnership angle. So, so the virtual volunteering really has given us that opportunity wherein we can tie up with our partners, who in some cases have provided their products and expertise free of cost. That has helped us to design programs. For example, getting educators from schools and colleges to get online, creating content. All of this has happened thanks to the products that have been that these product firms are selling. But then we saw an opportunity to use that in a social context, in the context of the COVID. So to kind of sum it up, yeah, I mean, definitely it is here to stay in 2020, even 2021. Perhaps in 2022, we probably might adopt a 80-20 approach, where 80% of the volunteering will continue to be virtual, because time and space barriers removed. We can be anywhere, anytime, right? And possibilities that was felt not a necessity, maybe a luxury, are all out of the window. So this is here to stay.
Thank you, Deepak. I've seen this in North America, especially when companies do a 1% pledge, where they actually pledge their, a lot of the tech companies pledge their products, and they usually give a pro bono, free of cost, the products and etc. And you rightly mentioned that we are seeing the trend here as well, not just in the product, the skills, the product, and especially the time and the barrier removed. We see a lot of first generation volunteers stepping in along with the families to do that. Thank you so much for that, Deepak. Mr. Gulati, again, shifting focus, I think it's a different setup. Like you said, it's a different ball game altogether. So my question is, what is your take, and how do you perceive virtual volunteering's future is going to be?
We've had 4 programs. They've been group programs where we've got people together around a theme, which is emotive, which gets them excited and which gets them involved. So there's been one around expressing gratitude to Jawans, which saw the highest connect, around almost 500 people connecting. And of course, there have been others. The reflections is important. What we've gone through, especially being a manufacturing company where you're not really, tech is not really essentially your strength with all the employees. What we saw was initially there were technology related glitches and challenges. However, that's really very, very minuscule and got easily resolved. And each event has had a learning for us to take back and improve. I think the greatest achievements, I think, from shifting from physical form of volunteering to a virtual one has been greater family participation. We've seen that participation has improved. There is also some improvement in the membership, people who've been volunteering. Of course, the virtual world does have its challenges. And the challenge is how to create a new meaningful group program which has a strong emotive connect. Going forward, I think irrespective of what happens to COVID in terms of being persistent as it is in the current situation, in terms of its imposing limitations on movement, etc. Irrespective of what happens going forward, we see that virtual volunteering is here to stay. It is going to play an important role, but you can't take away the distinct advantages of physical form of volunteering, where a lot of people would really like to be out there, get the feel and do things with their hands and be there and feel the whole thing, have the excitement about the whole journey of undertaking a volunteering programs. To my mind, both are going to coexist. So if I can use a cliche, so I think it's going to be more like a hybrid approach going forward, where you may have both nicely coexisting, and probably also events which are going to be seeing a mix of both physical and virtual coming together, basically suiting the needs of each individual and their comforts.
Amazing. Thanks, Mr. Gulati. I think we're almost on the hour clock. I think just to summarize the overall thing, what we saw here today is one side when the first immediate response was the relief, the COVID-19 relief, that that was a major the step the companies took with the virtual volunteering partner, Cognizant, TKM, and hundreds of others. And with that, the infusion of technology has made it a lot more smoother. Of course, Pushpa highlighted there were some hiccups and issues. The expectation setting, what is the ground reality, what is the expectation, was quite different. But with technology being one of the terms I keep hearing is COVID is a new chief digital transformation officer. Right, so every company ramped up to work remotely. Every nonprofits worked up to agility, like Pushpa mentioned. Everybody ramped up to work remotely and embrace technology to a whole new level, like be it a small payments and etc. Right. So with that, a lot of things have smoothened out. Second aspect, what we clearly take away from is a lot of the family involvement has been very critical. I mean, at least in some places that I've seen, the values of far more become deeper because we have shifted to the virtual volunteering side. We are involving our families. We have brought in volunteering. We're not taking volunteering to the nonprofit side. Rather, we have brought in volunteering to inside our homes and where we are cultivating the culture back. That is a second critical. Third is the pro bono skills, which was, I wouldn't say it was a learning. It was a curve, and I think we kind of jumped the curve, and now we are like leapfrogged into it. And a lot of companies, a lot of employees are coming and providing the skill base, the products, the skills, etc., into the overall volunteering, adding more long-term, impactful. Like a website created today will sustain for months together or years together. The content created will live for months and years together, right? So those are like really interesting part. And final key takeaway, which I also firmly believe, is that it will coexist. Like Deepak mentioned, yes, I mean, it could be 80-20, it could be a percentage, but it is meant to coexist. And with things ramping up, I think we'll smoothen it out with companies like Cognizant, TKM, and Pushpa obviously being the non-profit voice out there. I think we will coexist and get this thing up. Thank you so much for giving our time today and participating on this call. My last question is, Karma Summit is the second edition that we're doing in India. We did one in the North America. What we want to check with you is, what are the key takeaways or learning you're looking out to learn from this Karma Summit? Mr. Gulati, if I can ask you.
I think for me, it's been a very session of great learning. We got very different perspectives. I think if from the organized sector, you've had a good mix, two very extreme different sides of the spectrum. One is manufacturing and one is total soft skills IT. And I think, and from one side, which is the organizations which have to do CSR, the other side, the NGOs and who kind of are actually enabling it. So it's been very enriching, this session, from a personal point of view, in kind of totally having a completely different perspective. So I think the key takeaway, and I would like to congratulate you and thank you also for having me here. It's been a very, very enriching session in which one's got to have an insight into a totally different way of looking at things. And that normally is, very difficult to have an opportunity for that, and gives you a lot of good ideas. For example, a lot of things that what Prabhu San said or what Pushpa said, suddenly start resonating with you and give you good ideas and probably get you thinking, okay, perhaps this is something we can also think of. We wouldn't have thought of that earlier. So thank you. I think that was, to me, a very enriching session where I know I've also learned a lot rather than just sharing.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. Pushpa, over to you. I mean, the key takeaways. I mean, it was amazing to have you as a panelist today. Over to you.
I have a clarificatory question. You want key takeaways from this session, or I had understood it as your question being key takeaways from the summit itself?
The summit and the session. I mean, both are fine. I mean, whichever is good.
Okay. I think what was really nice is that the gap between nonprofits and corporations, and people who are part of corporations, it seems to have narrowed. And what we're seeing is that of course, people are people, and everyone wants to do good, but it looks like the virtual space is being able to bring us closer. And as we were speaking on this panel also, one realized that there wasn't much gap, or there wasn't much difference in perspectives. Rather, there was more convergence, and that makes me very optimistic. From the summit itself, what I would like to hear from others, the participants as well as the speakers, is how are people reimagining the future? Because for one, since we all see that this is going to be persistent and over a longer time horizon, how can we use this opportunity to completely reimagine and not kind of see how are we going to move everything that was on the ground or the physical world to the virtual space? Because suddenly, like we spoke about time and space barriers having broken, I would like to see what strategies, or hear what strategies companies have in mind, because now a lot more people who never thought they could volunteer can be actually volunteering or giving back. Family members who are otherwise kind of sitting on the periphery or doing casual stuff, getting involved in, say, annual occasions or periodic stuff, now they can actually begin to play a much bigger role. Similarly, on the nonprofit side, to not kind of see is traditionally some organizations thought that volunteering was for them, and a large number stayed outside of it. I would appeal to all of them and want to understand what some of the other speakers and participants have in mind going forward, to seriously consider how to engage people in corporations, not just the company itself doing its CSR, but just as volunteering, and even beyond that, how can we engage people that companies touch? We've always seen corporations being great conduits for connecting with people as employees, people as their business associates, and people who are customers. So how can nonprofits and companies have now a reimagined conversation about helping more people do good? Because nonprofits are also conduits to do good, not an end in themselves. So how can we all kind of look at the new tools in our arsenal, if I may put it, to kind of make good happen by leveraging everyone's skills, networks, resources, and kind of use this opportunity to imagine a new world of giving back. As the global leader for Giving Tuesday, I would say we're looking at not Giving Tuesday once a year, but making generosity a part of daily lives. So I think the session was excellent for us to kind of see that we are much closer than we imagine we are, and therefore, how can we kind of do more good, being coming together as one force. So thank you very much, Gudera, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Pushpa. Thank you so much for being on my panel today. Deepak, back to you.
Okay. Thank you. I think with respect to this session, I liked how Vikram and both Pushpa as well mentioned the involvement of family and the children in the volunteering activity. Clearly, children, I mean, if you catch them young, they'll be probably volunteers for life, right? That's something is a learning, is a takeaway for me. And when Pushpa was sharing about some of the confusion that was caused when in the virtual world, the corporate employee volunteers and the NGOs were trying to do something together, and how it took some time. So it was kind of a solace for me that we were not alone in that discomfort, in that confusion era. But I think we have adapted quickly, right? From the perspective of the summit, I mean, a lot of interesting sessions, but one of the things that we as a company are in the transition mode is matching with one of the sessions, which is about how to establish equilibrium between social and business objectives, right? After all, we are in the business of making profits and all that, but then yes, there's the societal priorities that we need to align and take care of. But how is that balance something that we are going to achieve? And also the challenges and opportunities in achieving the SDGs by 2030. I mean, we keep talking about it in every forum about SDGs, the reporting, and so on. So it would be interesting to know the challenges and opportunities in achieving them. So thank you very much, Gudera, for the opportunity to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Deepak. And great. Thank you so much, Deepak, Mr. Gulati, and Pushpa. I think the key takeaway is volunteering is here to stay. That means a lot of work for all of us. And looking forward to have you as a part of other sessions as well. And thank you so much. And thanks for being on the call today. I mean, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.